Welcome to this What's New in IHE PaLM webinar. I'm Angèle Berger. I'm the technical manager for the IHE Connectation in Europe. And thank you to Alessandro, Raj, and Riki for taking the time to introduce what PaLM has to offer this year. Before we dive into PaLM, I will just give you a few words about the IHE Connectation. Riki, if you can just go to the next slide. Okay, so the IHE Connectation is a formal interoperability test event where you will have the opportunity to meet with peers, to learn from the community, to test your IHE implementation for sure. We welcome the system at any development stage. So it could be prototype, it could be a product you are finalizing or a product you have already deployed on the field. The goal is to help you finding and fixing bugs during the week so you can complete the last mile of your software development. The testing is overseen by a team of independent experts, some of who are have also IHE profile. So it's a unique opportunity to share with them, learn from them. If you go next, please. So the registration is open till mid-March, and it's going to be extended till the end of the month. To complete your registration, there's a first form to fill in ClickUp, where you will input all the information we need to provide you with the contract and invoice. You will receive those documents by emails, and then you are invited to connect to Gazelle Test Management. And if it's your first time, to create an account there, so you can register your system and tell us what you want to test. And Gazelle Test Management is the tool that will support the testing until the publication of the results. So it's where you will find your tests, your partners, where you will input your evidences and things like that. If you go next, so the IHE Connectation is part of the IHE-Europe Connectation Week. So it will be in Vienna the last week of June, and you will have the chance to test at the Connectation, but we will have also testing and educational tracks at the IHE Plugin, derived around the EHDS topic. We have 1.5 day of conference at the IHE Experience Days. There's an Austrian project for the ELGA project, and there will be some European events. So this set, I don't know who is talking first from the PaLM team, but I just, so the floor is all yours if you want to introduce.
Great. Okay, so I think this was just a regular housekeeping slide. I will introduce my other chairs. I'm Riki Merrick. I'm the IHE, one of the two IHE Pathology and Laboratory Medicine, or PaLM for short, planning co-chairs, together with my partner in crime, Raj Dash. And then Alessandro Sulis serves as one of our technical co-chairs. The other one is currently being switched over. So we're not entirely sure who will take Kenichi's place, but we'll find out tomorrow, I think. But nevertheless, for this presentation, we're going to give you an overview of what the pathology and laboratory medicine domain covers, what we're currently working on, and specifically spend some time on the profiles for the June Connectathon. So first of all, the PaLM domain scope is pretty much any digital assets within the laboratory domain around tests performed on specimens, both in the clinical and the pathology laboratories. It includes the automation piece within the laboratory. It includes biobanking, as well as the secondary use of laboratory observations, for example, for public health reporting or in research, as well as blood transfusion. So these are some of the IT systems that you see in the pathology and laboratory domain. So hopefully you can find yourself in some of them. And these are all the different profiles we have. So we have external workflows that are supporting interactions between clinicians and laboratories, specifically the laboratory testing workflow that's in final text, that's covering ordering from the clinicians and result reporting back from the lab. The laboratory clinical communications profile, it's a trial supplement for making adjustments to those orders where the lab could propose new tests, other tests, or the provider can ask for more clarification. The labeling profile that helps with getting the labels that the lab needs onto the specimen at the clinician's offices, and then the point of care testing result reporting. We have external reporting profiles, and it looks like my animation didn't quite work. So we have XD Lab, which is reporting of lab results to public health. We have AHRP, which is also reporting to public health. And then the APSR, which is anatomic pathology structure reporting. For external reports, we have subcontracting between labs, which is the interlaboratory workflow. We've got transfusion medicine. So far, we've got the reporting of the administration, but we're planning on working on the ordering and dispensing of the blood products. We have internal automation, which is automation, the analyzer workflow, which is LAW, both of them are final text. And then we're working on the laboratory specimen handoff profile now. Digital pathology we'll spend a lot of time talking about. So we're currently have 2 profiles that we're definitely working on. And then we have some transversal services, so stuff that doesn't really fit any of those lines. The code set distribution, specification, the LCSD, and then the specimen event tracking. And these are the ones where my animation didn't work. So the external reporting is for performance management workflow. So that's proficiency testing. We're developing that profile this cycle. And the evidence creation, which we're also starting to work on. So talking about the technical framework, so items that are in final text. Last release was April of last year. As all IHE profiles, volume 1 describes the actors and supporting transactions for all of the profiles that are covered. And then, as you have seen, the laboratory domain has a lot of different profiles. So we've split volume 2 into several different volumes, and where you can find each of the final texts in the different volume pieces is identified here. Where the 2X kind of covers all the common segment definitions, and all of the volume 1 and volume 2, well, the volume 2 specs are all version 2, HL7 version 2 based. And then volume 3 is sharing laboratory reports, that's XD Lab, that's CDA based. So current work, we are picking back up the laboratory specimen handoff profile, where we're talking about being able to have the specimen transport manager tell the analyzer where exactly the specimen is, whether the specimen has a cap, how deep it needs to aspirate, all of those kind of things. So it really helps smooth out the automation line within the laboratories. We're hoping to get that finished by the end of the cycle. And the performance management workflow, in this case, we're looking at proficiency testing of all the workflows within the lab. So it's from the ordering coming into the lab to the workflow that's happening inside the lab. So all of those are covered by the performance management workflow profile that we're pulling together. And it's utilizing pretty much all existing transactions, but defining some of the vocabulary and the minimum data elements around that for proficiency testing. We've been working really closely with DICOM Working Group 26 to ensure support for DICOM Supplement 222, which is structured reporting and image annotation. And we really are focusing in our digital pathology work, and Dr. Dash can talk more about that here in a second, to be able to create and have all the elements that DICOM needs for the header when creating a digital image. And obviously, we're looking for image scanners and PACS and EHR vendors and LIS vendors to help us get more input on the ordering within the laboratory. So all the data that needs to flow between the transaction or the actors within digital pathology. And I should turn it over to Raj from here. So.
Thank you, Riki. Yep, happy to speak to this. We have a number of different actors that speak in a vendor agnostic way to different aspects of the digital pathology workflow. The order filler, and what's missing to the left of that is the order placer. Little issue with the font there. And then acquisition manager, acquisition modality, image manager, archive, evidence creator, and image display might all seem less than intuitive to you, but they represent the different roles that an information system might play. For example, an EHR might be classified as an order placer, placing a order for a pathology examination event. The order filler represents the laboratory information system that takes the order from the EHR and then allows the pathology and lab personnel to do some work on that tissue, generating a glass slide, which might then move on to software that runs the scanner. That would be the acquisition manager, which interacts with different scanners or acquisition modalities to actually acquire the digital image from the glass slide. Those digital images are then stored somewhere, perhaps in a pathology PAC system, here playing the role of the image manager / archive. Of course, we want to be able to do things with that image, in which case we might display the image using the image display actor, or we might create new evidence from that image, perhaps quantitative results, qualitative classifications, or generating new image annotations or new whole slide images from the original digital asset. And so this diagram, it attempts to holistically encompass all of the elements of the digital pathology workflow on a one-page display. We can click through and see how the different profiles, integration profiles, kind of support the roles and transactions of the various actors that's depicted here. So DPIA is the profile that's out for trial. It's at version 1.3 and focuses on the acquisition of a digital image from a glass slide, creating a DICOM file, with a certain minimum data set, including the patient demographics, the accession number of the slide, as well as this actual stain that is on that slide. So that represents an advancement over where we are today, where in digital pathology, the end user has to look at the label to identify what they are actually looking at. Otherwise, for example, immunohistochemistry for estrogen receptor or progesterone receptor look identical. A pathologist is not able to tell them apart, save for looking at the label. Now, with the ability to actually transfer metadata, it's possible for the acquisition manager, the software that runs the scanner, to receive information and package it into the DICOM file as the image is being created. Of course, there's more transactions that need to be supported in order to facilitate the acquisition manager actually getting that information, and other workflows such as announcement of the availability of a new digital asset. And that's where DPOW comes in, digital pathology ordering workflow, which speaks to interactions that were missing in order to support a digital pathology workflow with DPIA alone. We already have transactions between the EHR and the LIS encompassed in the laboratory testing workflow, and it may be that we don't need to extend those transactions and we can suffice with LTW. Otherwise, we considered creation of a new profile, but that might not be necessary. The final profile that's listed there is the digital pathology evidence creation profile that speaks to the digital analytics and AI and machine learning data outputs that might be generated from machine interpretation of a digital image or human interaction with an image, for example, to identify a region of interest and then have some type of analysis performed on it. And I think with that, we've covered the profiles that we want to work on for the near future. So DPIA is present, but we need vendors to actually leverage it and join in the Connectathon to stress test the DPIA profile, which generates essentially a DICOM file. Then we need to move on to actually more robust communications between the different actors. That's DPOW, that's still in development, but we're hopeful that by the time of the Connectathon coming up this summer, that we would have the draft of DPOW, the ordering and order workflow, ready to review. Finally, we are looking for vendors, analytics vendors, AI, machine learning vendors that have products in the digital pathology space that would be willing to engage in development of the evidence creation profile. We have some use cases drafted, but not a lot of work has begun on DPEC. And as mentioned before, the DPOR may not be necessary as we already have the LTW framework. Okay, so going with a little bit of a deep dive into DPIA, look at the next slide. And there's a number of use cases for DPIA, as well as the holistic digital pathology workflow. And the thought here is to parallel the laboratory analytic workflow in the clinical lab, but for anatomic pathology and for creation of a digital asset as opposed to clinical lab data. So there's support for within the metadata and the DICOM data model, magnification, information on stains, information on the source of the tissue so that a pathologist can interpret what's on the slide using potentially the metadata that's communicated over from some other actor into the DICOM file. Next slide. And these are the transactions in the DPIA that we're looking to test in the upcoming Connectathon, where we have software that runs the scanner working in two different modes with potentially multiple scanners or acquisition modalities. In one model, a glass slide appears unannounced in the acquisition modality, and then the that scanner queries the acquisition manager for the various metadata elements it needs in order to understand how to scan that slide, for example, at what magnification, as well as potentially other data elements that need to come back over the Lab 80 message so that the DICOM metadata can be populated. Once the acquisition is complete, the Lab 82 status change message goes back and to let the acquisition manager know that the slide has been that there's been some status change with the scanner in the attempt to create that digital slide. Of course, once the glass slide is successfully created, existing radiology transactions interact with PACS systems to store that image and to recognize that the archive has committed that glass slide to storage. That's the RAD 10 and the RAD 8. There are also existing radiology transactions for display of an image that's been stored in the PACS system, and that's the RAD 107 and RAD 129 transactions. So this is ready for vendors to test. Next slide. So the original design for DPIA was to take a very simple approach for whole slide image acquisition, identifying the minimum data elements that would be useful and functional for vendors to leverage. There are, of course, opportunities to expand on the DPIA profile to provide additional functionality, but that's where we require your help and your input to understand what feature sets your customers are asking for and test the functionality of, I would call it the bare bones infrastructure that we've developed in DPIA to see if there's any critical showstopper gaps that would preclude use of DPIA in your vended product. The latest update identified a significant gap in not being able to communicate metadata related to the actual stain that's on the whole slide image, as well as numerous errata that have been addressed thanks to input from the community, which is greatly appreciated. Next slide. Okay, and this is just the actual example of some of the changes that were made to be in line with HL7 and the appropriate use of segments for certain things. So for example, there is a repeatable SPM6 segment to be used for the stain. The SAC3 segment is used for the container ID. We've added the IPC segment for DICOM metadata, which we're pre-adopting. So it's a little bit of a challenge, perhaps, for some that are used to a very specific version of HL7 to potentially implement DPIA. But again, this is where we need your assistance. And you can see an example of how we've used SNOMED CT as a control vocabulary for some of the specimen segment fields here. Next slide. Digital pathology order workflow. This is an effort by a few vendors, as well as myself, to really understand what the gaps are that need to be filled to make the holistic set of profiles useful in a vended product. One of the key elements is that we need to be able to recognize when a digital asset has been created and when one needs to be created based on some user interaction. And so these are the digital asset request notification and digital asset availability notification. The first is when the order filler, the LIS, announces to the image management system that there's a request for a new digital asset. So that is, there's a physical asset, but there's no digital asset. This might be because the user has clicked on an image of a slide, right-clicked, and said, I need a recut, H&E, and a new scan. That type of interaction, which would then flow back from the PACS as a GUI message from the user, would need to go to the LIS, would need to generate the orders to create a new glass slide, and from there generate the subsequent orders for that slide to get scanned, and then that's the slide that would get scanned would need to fill some placeholder that was set up in the PACS system because it knew that the user had requested this recut H&E slide. So that's the type of workflow handled in DPOW. communication of additional data elements will be possible, and more complex use cases potentially have been theorized for future, but that's where, again, we need your help. For example, if we want to highlight a region of interest on a slide, request that some type of stain be performed with that particular region of interest analyzed, which is exactly what happens when a user picks a region of interest for HER2/neu IHC analysis on invasive tumor in a breast cancer. That is not going to be readily supported in our first implementation of DPOW unless someone says we really need to support that type of complex workflow, in which case we might need to extend some of the transactions as we currently have them drafted. All right. So the digital pathology ordering workflow, again, it's in close collaboration with Working Group 26. Everything is being shared between our sessions of IHE PaLM, where we're having our digital pathology working group sessions with the DICOM Working Group 26. And we will identify soon what the draft transactions will be for DPOW. We've just, at this point, managed to identify the scope of work, as well as all the different steps that need to be managed and the data elements. And now we need to actually flesh out the transactions. Next slide. And finally, evidence creation. So this is very nascent. Next slide. But these are the types of use cases that have been identified. Again, if this is a vended product that that has features along these lines, this is definitely what we need your help in helping to create a vendor agnostic integration profile to support your product working well with other products and integrating with PAC systems and LIS systems and EHRs. So rare event detection, quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, things that are useful for users, such as heat maps to indicate where they've viewed images, and then maybe complex image manipulation, such as multispectral analysis, creating new whole site images, or virtual stains. Next slide. And now for our Connectathon test cases, I'll hand it over to Alessandro.
Yes, thank you, Raj. This last part of the presentation is a kind of overview on some profiles of interest of PaLM, mainly from the point of view of the Connectathon, so of the test cases of the Connectathon. And we start from DPIA. And these are the 4 test instances for the Connectathon that we have developed in PaLM for DPIA, mainly with the purpose to test the 2 different modalities of exchange of image work order step between the actors that are query and broadcast, and then other 2 tests that have the purpose to test the interaction with the external actors as radiology actors when for the part related to digital image production and archiving. There is also a full workflow step that whose aim is to test the overall workflow of digital slides production and archiving in the radiology side altogether. Next slide, please. All the messages related to DPIA, all the DHL7 version 2 messages have been profiled by the usage of the IGAM tool. IGAM stands for Implementation Guide, Authoring and Management Tools, and it's a tool developed by NIST that allows to build HL7 version 2 message profiles starting from the main standards. And this is very important in relation to IHE transactions, because every transaction mainly has its own HL7 version 2 profiles from the point of view overview of exchange messages. So for DPIA, the job that has been done is to build all the required profiles for all the transactions that are the starting point for Gazelle Validator to test at the connectathon the compliance of the exchange messages. This is true not only for DPIA but also for all the other profiles. Next slide, please. And this is another important thing that we will require to the vendor testing DPIA, which is the compliance and the mapping, we can say, between the DHL7 version 2 messages exchange in lab 80, 81, and 82 transactions and the DICOM object produced and that will be saved inside the radiology actors, for example, inside the image archiver. There has been a lot of work, a lot of joint work with the DICOM work group 26 to ensure that all the DICOM objects produced have the minimal set of required metadata in a way to ensure that we are not producing not compliant DICOM objects. This is a part of this mapping where to every field of the HL7 version 2 messages from one side, we map the DICOM element on the other side. And it's required for the vendor to support all the mandatory information for the DICOM object, a way to ensure that not to produce not compliant DICOM objects during the occurrence of the radiology transactions. Next, please. This is another new profile we have developed the last year, which is called specimen event tracking, that as Riki said before, can be considered as a profile transversal to all the other, because its aim is that to track all the different events that occur to a specimen during his life cycles. So we identified several use cases according to the fact that the specimen has been produced for the first time or has been transferred from one facility to another facility or has been analyzed by some analyzer inside the lab or exchange inside or outside a biobank. The two actors are very simple. We have a specimen event informer and specimen event tracker. The informer is usually linked with all the other common actors of PaLM domain that deal with the transactions and with something that is related to the specimen. So he is able to collect the specimen checking information and send it to an event tracker that has the responsibility to save and store them. Here we have a set of events that are defined by the profile, and in particular the lab epsilon1 transaction is a HL7 version 2 related transaction, and in a way to be able to build the proper HL7 version 2 messages for every of these events. We also developed together with the HL7 orders and observation group a set of new HL7 version 2 message profiles dedicated to set, new for set, we can say. Next, please, Riki. These are the test cases that for set we have identified for the connectathon. We have to say that on the first time we were aiming to develop a set of test case based on the use cases defined by the profile. But at the end, we changed this behavior because it's too complicated for a vendor to have a test to test an overall use case for set. It's simple to test one or more atomic events that might occur to the specimen. Maybe a specimen event informer that comes to the connectaton could join with some other connectaton actor related to some other profile and collect from him some checking information and then send it to an event tracker that is also interested to join the connectaton. Maybe this we could have also some simulator that generate this checking information that it's used by the specimen event informer to build the messages for the event tracker. Also for this profile, there we have some HL7 version 2 IGAMT profiles for message validation that are ready. So we have all we need to migrate all the profiles for the new set messages to the Gazelle validator. Next slide. Another interesting profile is the laboratory testing workflow that we can consider from the point of view of all profiles of PaLM, such an entry point, because it's related to the ordering, scheduling, processing, and result reporting associated with in vitro diagnostic tests. So the scenario is, for example, the one where an order placer orders some laboratory tests to an order filler, or if the orders are generated inside the order filler. And laboratory testing workflow transaction deal with, for example, order of some tests. So how many specimens are needed for this order. And then to the transfer of the information to the automation manager, which is the boundary to the in vitro testing profile, which is mainly the laboratory analytical workflow profile. So the order filler is responsible to communicate to the automation manager which are the tests to execute and in which specimen, and then the flow will go on with the automation manager that divides this order in some work order steps and sends it to the analyzers. Next slide, please. This is the list of tests that are defined for the connectaton for the laboratory testing workflow. Mainly, each test is testing one different transactions, so involves different actors. There is only a global LTW workflow test involving all transaction but lab 2. And this test, this is the profile that has been tested more times at the connectaton in the past. Next slide, please. Then, as I said just before, the laboratory analytical workflow, which is the profile related to mainly to the in vitro diagnostics and related to the definition of analytical work order steps that are mainly the test to execute on a specimen by the analyzer. So we have the analyzer manager, that it's the actor linked to the laboratory order world that we have just seen in the laboratory testing workflow. and then the analyzer part, which is the actor that is responsible to execute the test of the specimen on the specimens. Usually, the analyzers works on a bidirectional way, so they have two different modes to get the work orders from the analyzer manager. One is the broadcast, when the analyzer manager sends the analytical work order steps, broadcasting it to all the analyzer. And the second one is when the analyzer queries for the analytical work order step related, for example, on the specimen he received. And also the analyzer obviously is responsible to send some status change on the analytical work order steps once, for example, he executes some battery of tests on a specimen to send the results. There are also some options in the profiles that cover some specific operation, as for example, reruns on the analyzer or reflex tests. Next slide, please. This is the list of tests that have been defined for the connectathon for the laboratory analytical workflow. Mainly, they cover each one covers a different use case. Also, some specific use case, as I said, for example, rerun or urgent analytical work order steps, and involve the analyzer and the analyzer manager. So vendors will have to demonstrate their communication on the transfer of analytical work order steps between their two from the point of view of what is required by the profile. So as you can see. Next. Here there are some important updates to the laboratory analytical workflow profile that we had in 2024, so the last year. And the one important thing is that all these updates have been acknowledged by CLSI Auto 16 standard. So these standards have been updated accordingly to this profile, and it's very important things from the point of view of vendors interested to implement and to deal with these profiles as well, I think. Next. And I think it's up to you, Riki. It's the final slide.
So that was all the items or the profiles that are available for connectathon testing, and hopefully this has piqued your interest in the pathology and laboratory medicine domain. How you can help us get better, write better profiles, and implement them, obviously is utilize the profiles. You can come join IHE International and apply for membership, and join the laboratory planning and technical committees, join our mailing list at minimum, so you can stay up to date with what's going on within our domain and where we have questions. And even if you don't want to join IHE, you can always still look at all the profiles that are out there and submit comments on the profiles, and come, of course, and participate in testing them at the connectathon. And Gail, that's all we have from the PaLM side.
Thank you very much to you all. Any question regarding this presentation?
I think it was really insightful. I had the question which was the last slide, so I think it's already covered.
Thank you. So thank you again for joining. Thank you, Riki, Raj, and Alessandro for this great presentation. So do not hesitate to reach out if you have any question or if you encounter issue to join the connectation or to work with the PaLM committee. Have a great rest of the day, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Whoops.